who was, goaded into shots and things and everything. She's 22 years old. She's 3 months pregnant and she had a stroke. And I know with clots and things, when they talked about this in the beginning of the shots, you could look up clots, and the CDC didn't want to talk about it. They sent you someplace and said it wasn't real. Now, my one grandson has a girlfriend, and they're talking about marriage, and she has reproductive issues in the womb. So, and she had all her shots. She's another one that where she wasn't able to go out and be in public or anything, wear a mask, all the shots and boosters and everything. And I know myself, when I got my shots, I lost a lot of memory. I can't recall names for situations. There's one word that will describe something, and I can describe the whole thing. The whole thing's in my mind, but the name isn't there. I actually forgot my grandson's name for 3 days. Didn't dare to ask anybody because they'd say, you're having a stroke, you should go to the hospital. And I did recall it eventually. This is all after the shots. And just look at your president. I don't think he's very, very sharp either. He had all his shots, and he's in the time period where he got all the shots. So I think he went downhill in a hurry. These are examples of what I think that the CDC doesn't know, that they don't know. And let's see if there's one. The other thing is about masks. What's going to happen when you have a reoccurrence with something here and a new variant comes along? Are we going to be putting masks on? A lot of control, but I think you have to think about how the administration is going to handle these things. Hey, if a kid's got a mask down around their nose or something, are you going to say, oh, you're suspended from school? Or do you walk by and say, you really should put your mask up and go on with life? So with the Supreme Court thing with abortion, the word came up codified. And I think that's a word I didn't understand it. I looked it up a number of times, and I'm still not sure I understand it. But I think that's what we have to do with a lot of these policies that we're talking about. We need to codify them. We need to go to the administrators and teachers that are going to be enforcing these things and see what they mean and see how they're going to be enforced. I think that's what the word codify means, to clarify, a decision. And I don't know, let me think for a second here. I would go through my notes and things, but I think we have to spend a lot more time on this policy than just go over it and read it over and see. We have to, I think you as a board, you have to discuss it and see how it's going to affect things, see how things are going to be enforced, see what effect it's going to have on your students, see what effect it's going to have on reproductive rights 10 years down the road. They don't know. I know what I suspect. I don't know if I'm right or not, but I know a lot of people that are having problems because of these shots. So I think you have to go through this item by item. You can't just go through and say, hey, we read it, oh, it looks good, well, let's see, we'll vote on it, I think you need to spend days on this committee time, and there's a lot going on that you have to codify, I guess, or clarify, and see how it's going to be enforced. So, hey, if I think of something else, I'll raise my hand.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. And I can assure you that that policy is going to go under review soon.
Oh, I know what else I was. Let's see that thing again. You talk about dress codes and things here. If, I don't know what the dress codes are, but I think they should be clarified so that everybody knows what they are. If you have a teacher that wants to cross-dress or something, cross-dress like a lady, not like a, I won't say the word now, but anyway, you should have dress codes for students and teachers, and administration, and even board members, I guess, to represent the public. Maybe something else that I had in mind here too. I'll probably think of it in a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Next item on the agenda is board committee reports, and it is Code of Conduct 22 to 23, second reading and possible adoption. Going to ask for someone to make a motion that we accept Code of Conduct 22 to 23, and if we get the motion, we'll second it, and then we'll go up for discussion. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
So that'll be Rose and then second. Any discussion?
If I may, the committee did not meet. We're rather new. We had 14 days. We had to notify the public 7 days in advance, and one of our committee members was not available. So we did not meet formally, but we talked informally, very little. But we are looking forward to have a dialogue this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith, I have something if you have some time. So I took a deep dive into the policy document, and I think it's a strong document, and it is very close to where we need it. I had a few questions. I emailed them to the committee and to the superintendent about a week ago, just so everyone has an idea of where my issues were with the document. And just to bring a few out, the dress code has been spoken of numerous times. Obviously, it's a subject to bargaining. So that's something we should kind of put, I think, to the forefront. If we are going to try to bargain that and discuss it, we should do that sooner rather than later. Because if we put it off, it's going to turn into another year that we haven't done anything with. So that's the first one. Second question I had, and some of these are just lack of familiarity with the system that we operate in. So excuse me and forgive me for some of that. But we have violent acts include vandalism. Do we enforce severe consequences for vandalism as we're permitted to? Now that's a question I have, because obviously the district struggled with some pretty significant vandalism to the bathrooms, issues with destruction, and the message that we were getting from the public was that there wasn't much enforcement, with penalties at the school. So if we can, I think that we should, and I wasn't sure if anybody had any comment on that. I know, Erin, you're new to the district, so I guess you're to speak to it.
Right?
All right. My opinion is there need to be consequences. And if our bathrooms are getting destroyed and someone gets a severe punishment, hopefully it deters the next person. All right. As you guys go to page 18.7G. All right, 18.7G, it's under the Board of Education, kind of the responsibilities. And if you're to letter G, which has now been turned or changed to number 5, it used to read, address issues of harassment or any situation that threatens the emotional or physical health or safety of any student, school employee, or any person who is lawfully on school property or at a school function. That was Xed out, the address was Xed out, and it now says inform school official, I think it's officials, of any issues of harassment or any situation. My discussion on this is part of addressing the issue by the board would be informing the school officials. And I'm not sure that this board, I can speak for myself, I don't think that the board should give that part up of addressing those issues.
So how I would read address the issues would be like for us to actually handle it with the students, which is why I took it as being changed to the new wording. So that the school officials are the ones handling it rather than the board members.
Okay, I think that it takes some of the strength of the board away in these issues or these topics. And again, part of addressing some of these issues may just be to notify the superintendent and the principal that there is this issue. But there may be some other level of harassment, whether it's in administration, if it's in staff or students, that the board feels that they should move on. And that's a significant, sometimes one word can be a significant change. But just food for thought. All right. Next was, which was a little confusion. I had to get some clarity on this, but I think I have it. Page 20, student dress code. One of the suggestions was students shall not be punished for showing minimal aspects of underwear. It appears that we have not adopted this policy. Is that correct in our document? Because it is down as a suggestion.
Where is that?
It's in the notes section. It says, we recommend, you're
Is that in the shaded? The shaded?
yes, shaded portion about halfway down. Yep. And it reads as, we recommend modifying item 3 so that students are not penalized for showing minimal aspects of underwear. I don't think we adopted that in the lower portion.
So underneath it says in number 2, recognize that brief garments and see-through garments are not appropriate. So I think that is, and then number 3. And then there's the writing underneath with the amendment also. Clothing shall fully cover undergarments, shoulder, back, stomach, breasts, and bottoms. That is to be added to the verbiage.
So that shaded part is just notes, correct?
Correct.
And are those just suggestions from the state?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent.
Did you have to write in?
Yeah, I have the write-in, but honestly, some of it I can't read it.
The red.
Okay, good. All right. All right. Page 24, section D.
D as in boy?
D is in David. Number 2, possessing a weapon. Authorized law enforcement officials are the only persons permitted to have a weapon in their possession while on school property or at a school function. Who is an authorized law enforcement official according to this policy? And that was a question I had. And we've had a number of people from the community ask if on-duty versus off-duty police officers can carry in the district. We've had corrections officers. Are they allowed to carry in the district? We have some security personnel that are not law enforcement but are paid as security that carry in the district. So I would say a little clarity here may clean this up, or maybe you guys have it already and I just don't know about it.
I asked our school attorney for clarification on that, and she has not gotten back to me.
That's interesting because I've spoke to like a basket full of attorneys that are all like wishy-washy on this topic, specifically with the new stuff coming out of the governor's office. Everybody's kind of in a gray area. So as a school, we may want to iron that out before we have a parent or off duty that's wandering the school that somebody calls on. So just food for thought. All right. Page 27. This talks about violations when the police should be called, when they shouldn't. My opinion, and it's up obviously for discussion, but any crime against a person should be a notification to police. And the reason I say this is if someone's child is subject to a crime, if they get hit, they get touched, they get beaten up, and it's handled in-house, I think we open ourselves up to a pretty high level of liability. That's not to say every issue on school campuses needs to be a police contact, right? If there's damaged property, someone breaks a window, they throw a ball, the school can handle it, great. I just think we are on a little bit of a slippery slope handling with crimes against persons in the district without a notification. Page 52. Strip searches. I am not sure of any circumstance where I think a student should be strip searched in our district. The language in here allows for it. I would suggest that anything that reaches the level of a strip search, we contact local police and the parents of that student. The language being in here actually was shocking that I saw this. Actually glad I read it. I don't know if it's already been X'd out. I see a line through it, but again, it's boxed in the notes section. So
I would take it that was struck, and we were going to go with the section that's up above.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can see the box line.
Mm-hmm.
Where it prohibits us from doing that. Yeah.
So the boxed in part with the red check is
Where all the
Going
lines are,
forward.
Tim. They're all, there's nobody, yeah, that's not going to happen.
who, does anybody know who marked up the document? Why is that boxed in with the red check? Do we know?
No, don't have an answer to that.
It looks like it's kept there for something.
I take it as that was being incorporated into the document, replacing what struck through it down below.
Okay. Right. Okay. All right. Page 54. We have ages of some juvenile things here. And I believe we have 16 in here still. New York State, and especially the criminal system, recognizes minors as 17. So I'm not sure if we want to change that in our policy here.
Mm-hmm.
Unless the student is 16 years old or older. I don't know if how it affects us. Probably a call to our attorney who would be in line for that.
Need him to use his microphone.
All right, that's all I have. Those are my concerns.
I would have to agree with what Tim was saying about the language with the, who can carry, who can't. That's something I've always understood it as, being somebody who was an SRO or the security. But just to really make it plain as day before somebody gets in big trouble for something they thought was acceptable. But come September 1st, things are going to change anyways. So.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, if you may. I see in here it says a lot that goes to a lot of the stuff that needs to be done is directed towards the administration other than the superintendent. We as a board hired our superintendent. We don't micromanage. I think everything should go through the superintendent. She should know everything, and she can appoint who she needs to have appointed, who she feels comfortable can enforce the rules. And then the feedback would definitely go back to her. Anything in here about cell phone use? We're going to talk a little bit about that.
What page is it, George? And
I don't know what page it's on, but I did submit a copy of an example of another district. And I see there's more districts that are getting on board because of things that are happening. And obviously it's a serious issue. And I understand why we might get pushback from it. But also I understand that we're enabling our kids to go on a path that's probably it could be damaging down the road. Did we talk a little bit about the tire in here as well for staff? I mean, that needs to be discussed along with it. I know there's stuff in the contract of theirs, but we need to tighten that up.
My understanding is
Cell
that,
phone-
sorry, my understanding is that the teachers this is student code of conduct and how we address student issues, not how we address teachers, and that would be a separate code of conduct and policy that we would have to review.
So it is addressed in the Code of Conduct, page 53, item C.
I think that language is suspect. Because now, forgive me with this thing. Now, even law enforcement can't go into somebody's cell phone. So I think that verbiage needs to be cleaned up. Is that correct, Tim? To some degree?
yes. Now, I have a question for the pretty much everyone at the table. If this is voted on tonight and it's passed, how are edits made and can they be made throughout the year to update the code?
It's going to go under review and it will be readopted if there's any changes when it's ready.
Any changes that are made, we go through Beth also, because this stuff is coming down from the state and their attorneys. You change one word and that puts the district on the hook. So just be aware of that.
It's a process, but it can be readopted if there's a change.
And is the policy, is the sample policy
Was
usually
none.
written like this with the X outs and the lines and?
What do you mean?
Like, is this consistent with the product that we usually have to review prior to a vote on a code of conduct that affects the whole district? Because this document is what I would describe as less than professional.
I agree, but I think because of we were losing an administrator and a superintendent and bringing a new superintendent in, we were Dr. Silver did not want to finish a finished copy in case there were changes that were to be made by the new superintendent. Okay. So I would say it's not typical, but
Okay.
it is was kind of just the way it went.
All right, someone must have did all the work on it with all these marks. I, as a committee member, would like to hear from them for the reason Also, I would like to hear from our superintendent, have a chance to have her input before we approve this. She's the one that's going to be enforcing this. She needs to know that she has the full board support. And I think there's a lot in here that needs to be digested. So if we could put it off until the committee meets, has a chance with the superintendent and whoever else she wants on that committee, on her part, I certainly would appreciate it. I think that this is a very, very serious policy we're putting in place. Obviously, there's a reason why so many people came out this year. Obviously, there's a reason why we have a discipline problem in our school. Let's get it right. Let's take our time. Let's get it right. Let's hear from every board member what they think. I think that's very, very important. The ones especially have been on the board for a while, maybe you can share some thoughts of why some of these things are in place or incident that had happened, why they're in place, or how we can make it better. Thank you.
Anybody else?
The whole purpose of this meeting, having a special meeting, was to meet a deadline or help with a deadline of getting this document home. If we wait until the 11th, that puts the district in a kind of a tougher spot to get it out with the mailing. So I know I had said meet sooner, and I would have thought we would have been able to move on this tonight, just so there was more time to compile the mailer that has to go out. Is my understanding of the deadline, that we need to act before the 11th? That's why we were meeting today.
Yes.
So I think if we have to act, either have another meeting before the 11th or act today and then revise it accordingly. So if you want to have it go home before the start of the school year, which I don't know if that's a law or if that's just a practice, but it needs work, sure, but revise it as we go. And then that was the whole point of today, was just to get this thing so it can get out in the mail.
Okay.
Can I just, one more time, if you guys just look at page 18 for me, and I'd love to hear some of the other board members' input on the changing of the word address to inform school officials.
I think for me, there's a chain of command that always has to be followed. People are not to come to us and expect us to solve a problem if they have not gone through the appropriate chain of command, whether it's starting with a classroom teacher and then a building principal to the superintendent. There's a process there. So it's basically, if somebody tells you something, you clue in the official, whomever it is, if it's the principal, or that's where they go. And will it come to us? It's got to go through those steps. People can't run to us and expect us to tell a teacher what's going. It's okay. Sorry about that. From my understanding is it's not my understanding. There's a chain of command that has to be followed. So for us to address things on our own outright, I would never go to a classroom teacher because a parent came to me because little Billy didn't get his fruit snacks. That's something you talk about to the teacher, and then if it doesn't get resolved, it goes to the principal. That's how I took that. As far as informing officials, that's a very minor example, which that does happen, but that's how I took it.
I guess my question, Pat, and for the people that have been on the board, this document that's marked up has been the document for the past years, correct? So I'm sorry?
Yep. Just use your mic, please.
And you can add. Dave can help me out too with any comments, but basically the state gave us the code of conduct, which we went through line by line with our current current policy from last year. And so the reason that you have a document that looks like it does is so that you can see the old and the new, so that you can see both. So it's a true review, really, and you've noticed the changes. So you see what it used to be and what it is now. The notes that, like in the gray box, those are notes from the state of New York saying this is what we recommend. That doesn't mean we always took it. There were times when we thought our wording of our policy was superior to what the state was suggesting. And there were other times when we said, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And we put it in there that way. So that's why the document looks like it does. It will definitely not look anything like that when it goes out, but that's so we can see the changes.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess my question for the other board members, especially the guys that have been out for a little bit or gals that have been out for a little bit, if it was addressed last year, it was probably addressed the years prior, why is it changed this year to inform? And isn't part of addressing issues of harassment, wouldn't one of those steps be informing administration?
I do think informing would be part of that, but I just think addressing it goes too far. Our job as a board is to create policy and to make sure the superintendent is doing her job. So going any further than informing the superintendent of something like that would be crossing a boundary, I think.
No, I'm confused in that it was in the document last year, and then this year we're taking it out. And that one word, it changes a lot. It changed a lot. I mean, with that word in there, informing school officials, that's part of addressing. But if it's an issue with a school official, then our direction is to inform school officials. So I guess it would help if I had someone that looked at this document, that put the little arrow in, crossed the line out and said, inform school officials of any, instead of address. That would clear up a lot. And I don't know if we have that.
Well, maybe it would be address issues of harassment by informing a school official. And it's pretty specific.
If I can, address is probably appropriate when it reaches the level of the Board of Education and you act upon information that is presented to you. And as a board, you are now addressing those issues that are brought to you as it goes up through. Okay. Yeah, we want to be informed, but there are times when, as a building administrator, I will do an investigation and it will filter its way up to you as a board. You'll share that as you do and address the issues at that time that come before you. It isn't, think of it as in terms of a hierarchy.
Anybody else?
I feel like that it should stay as addressed, as address.
I mean, it may be address and inform, but if you're talking about that word, I'd love to look back at how many years that's been in there and what caused the change this year.
Is it Dr. Silver who did the crossing out of this? Do we know?
Between myself, Jen Williams as building principals, Deb Kelly was involved, and Dr. Silver. It was a process that probably took us well over 10 to 15 hours. You have to understand that, we look at what we have. You have to look at changes in law that have occurred since the previous edition, which is why the state requires us annually to review and approve the code of conduct. Okay, there are many things that are contained within this new code that's presented to you that are a direct result of either a Supreme Court case or a state case. Okay, and just to name a couple. Okay, you had the cheerleader case where in public she was bad-mouthing the school. the Supreme Court upheld that that's well within her right. Okay, you had the incident with the young man with the braids on the wrestling team. Okay, that's why there is specific language in there regarding braids, and dress code or grooming or how a student chooses to wear their hat. That's why, in August, all of us as administrators, we're going for a day for law to tell us what all the new law changes are. So that's the whole reason, if you will, behind the annual review, because changes in law necessitate changes in how we address it within our code of conduct. The code of conduct is not designed to absolutely cover every case possible, but to provide parameters for us in the general running of the day-to-day school. And that's why you'll see in there, we don't specifically say, you do this, you're going to get this, because everything is taken into consideration. The process between the four of us was long, it was lengthy. You also have to understand that the draft that we get gives suggestions, and it says if you do this, then you need to include this. We've gone through that, and that document, my guess would be that there were a number of attorneys who, for the service that provides us with those drafts, went through and vetted based on the changes in law. So if that helps, and you're not going to ever come up with a policy, nor should you ever think you can, that's going to address every single possibility. It doesn't happen, because something new will happen tomorrow. But as anything, as you've said, it's a living, breathing document. If you feel as a Board of Education, as a result of something that is brought to you and you address it, that we need to make a change, you have that power.
And Dave, I think the document's strong. I read every word of it. I think it's strong. I am a bit hung up on this 7G section, the address section.
I think it more comes down to if a parent approaches us and it violates the chain of command, if they come and bring an issue of harassment, that we're not taking it as a board into our own policy and addressing the behavior and how we feel it should be. We then need to, instead of taking action, we need to inform Dave and Aaron and move from there. It's not for us to determine what the consequences are. And I think that's where sometimes we get lost with the public, is that they come to us and they think that we're supposed to fix it. And it's not. We've got the chain of command for a reason, just like Pat referenced earlier. And that's how I'm taking it, as that we need to be informing the rest of the individuals, not that it's our issue to solve. We can have input with Aaron and Dave, but it is not for us to determine the consequences.
Again, I'm looking for clarity on why it was changed. That's all.
So I think that is under the DASA spot in the code of conduct, which means the DASA coordinator would do that, and then the board responsibilities. But I'm even wondering if we add some additional language that talks about the administration informing, or the board informing the administration of a situation, but then another clause in there that would say that the board will address any situations that are brought to their attention regarding an administrator.
I mean, I got to tell you that word to me is it's just a change that I wouldn't go with as a board. And if we got board members here that have been here for 5, Pat, how long you been here?
8 years.
8 years, and it's changed this year, and I still have not heard why it was changed and what went wrong over the last 8 years that brought that about.
I get what the administration's saying, Mr. Pulley. I get it. But what I don't get is the the faculty and the kids do not feel safe in this school, you shut the bathrooms down, stuff is being pulled off the walls, there is something wrong. We need to fix it. And if it takes the board to do it, we will do it. But it has to be the total board to say, this is what we need to do. We need to straighten this out. And you cannot do it in one night. Obviously, everybody has a concern. And I like to hear everybody's concern.
I just want to go on record and say, of all the children I know, my own children and all of their friends, there is not one child that I would say feels unsafe in this building. I have huge issues saying that. Maybe there's some children, but to make a blanket statement that students don't feel safe, not a kid that I know, and I know a lot of kids. Just going on record to say that.
They won't talk to you because you're a board member.
That's absolutely not the case.
Anybody else?
I'm thinking we should just adopt and then change, but with the approval of our attorney. This stuff comes down from the state. The staff work diligently on changes. If there's problems, then the policy committee will go through it and then inform the rest of the board about it, and then go from there. Address.
My only hang up prior to the vote is 7G address. That's my hang up. Now, can I make a motion to revert back to the original language of 7G?
I think you're within your rights to vote no when we take it to vote.
I'm saying I don't want to vote no on the whole document. There's a specific issue that, if addressed, the rest of these issues, I think, can be worked on over time. This issue, if you change that wording, it's going to be a long road to get it back.
Well, it can be worked on during the year and changed. You know, if everyone's in agreement. I mean, it's something that maybe we need to digest a little bit, but I don't think it should hold up today's vote. It's just one word.
And Tim, if you feel that strongly about it, which I respect, then you should talk to Beth. I don't know who made the change, and I understand your concern, which I take seriously, but what will be the ramifications of changing the word back? I don't know what prompted it. I wasn't involved with that, but it shouldn't hold up the rest. It should be able to be changed again. Just my thoughts.
I could surmise what prompted it is, instead of having the board address the issues, just tell administration they're going to address the issues. But in turn, we may not always have an administration that we agree with, or we may have certain administrators that we don't agree with at some point, and the board may want the ability to address these issues.
The board has the ability, but the chain of command is clearly illustrated on the website. You have to follow it. You just can't, everybody just can't run to the board and just say, well, I have this or that wrong, which we listen to, but then we inform.
Absolutely. I am fully aware of what the chain of command is and what everyone's role is here. But to ignore the change in this document, this specific change, I think is short-sighted, my opinion.
Well, I wouldn't say that we're ignoring it, but we can't change the document because was out to the public, and we just can't. It just doesn't work like that.
So you can't make a motion to make an amendment tonight?
Not amend this, not here.
Another motion and amendment later on.
What if we made it an and/or statement? Inform school officials and/or address, because not everything is going to be our spot. You know, it's got to go the proper way. Then it preserves the address portion by going and/or. I don't know.
Sounds right.
It's kind of a compromise.
I mean, I think everyone in the room knows the board does not want to deal with the issues that Mr. Pulley and the rest of the admin deals with students. That's not our agenda. I'm just saying the language has been changed that was never changed before, and no one's given a valid reason why.
What about the issue with going through the superintendent, and the superintendent is the one that designates the people who takes care of the issues?
That's what she's going to do anyway.
It doesn't say that in the code of conduct. It says that we designate the high school and the elementary or whoever. Doesn't say it goes through the superintendent. So many of them.
Okay, anybody else? Sorry. No. Okay. Please proceed to vote.
George?
Yes.
Seven yes, one no. Be resolved. The board reviewed and adopts the Code of Conduct for 22-23 as attached to the public portion of the agenda. Okay. Number 4, public comment session for items that are not on tonight's agenda.
I don't know if it's on the agenda or not. I have some questions.
You have comment?
Can I ask them?
You have a comment?
Yeah, I guess I have a comment.
Okay.
In your policies thing here, it's on page 7. I think it was page 7. It talked about transgender. I would like to know the definition of transgender. Is it just hormones or is it surgery? What is it? What's the definition? Like, we don't know what we're talking about in here because it's not defined.
We would have to get back to you on that.
Okay, and then the other thing that goes along with that is gender identity. Does this mean that, hey, a boyfriend and a girlfriend can be going together and then all of a sudden the guy says he's a girl and they go in the bathroom and make out? You know, what does it mean, gender identity? Does it change from day to day? You know, hey, I'm 76 years old. There was never anything like this back then, so I'm behind the times. So, I don't know what to think about this. And then there's things about pronouns. If I go to my English literature book that I had in college, it's like he, she, it, singular pronouns, and they and them, and others, are plural. It doesn't say anything about call me dog or anything like that. So how does this fit into the curriculum that you're teaching when it comes to English language?
Is that it?
Well, there's another one about treating people with respect. You know, all people should be treated with respect. I agree with that. But it seems to lean towards the special cases where they need respect, and it doesn't mention anything about the general population of the school. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion. Special meeting number 1?
Second.
And a second. Please prepare to vote. Okay, thank you. Do you want to go right into the meeting, or does anybody need a break? Nothing? Okay. Let me switch screens.
Those comments also with like Title IX. How does that affect this? How does that all work?
Okay. We ready? Everybody in? Good, Pat? Tim? That's all right, take your time. Everybody else, Brent, you good? Randy?
I'm in now.
Rose? And go. Go to feature. Got it? All right. Okay. Board of Ed special meeting number 2 has come to order. Public comment session for items that are on tonight's agenda. Mr. Curry, anything? Okay. New business. Appointment, tenure track, special education teacher. Can I have a motion to appoint the tenure track special education teacher?
Motion.
George? Do I have a second?
Second.
Danielle?
Mm-hmm.
Please, any discussion? Please proceed to vote. We have everyone, Norma?
One is still showing.
George? Did you vote? Who are we missing? Unanimous?
I have Amanda Curlis here with us, so she'll be joining our elementary team. Amanda, welcome.
Welcome.
Okay, be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education approves the appointment of Amanda Curlis to a 4-year probationary term as a special education teacher in the tenure area of special education commencing September 1, 2022, provided that, except to the extent required by law, in order to grant tenure, you shall have received composite or overall annual professional performance review ratings pursuant to Education Law Section 3012-C or Section 3012-D, or of either effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years. And if you receive an ineffective composite or an overall rating in the final year of the probationary period, you shall not be eligible for tenure at that time. The salary for the 22-23 school year will be at step 6, $61,251, as per the current TVTA contract. As per contract, additional salary for master's degree and credit hours will be reviewed for approval. Amanda Curlis holds New York State professional certification in students with disabilities, grades 1 to 6, effective August 8th, 2019, and childhood education, grades 1 to 6, effective January 18th, 2020. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of a land tech. Can I have a motion for the appointment of the land tech?
Motion.
Pat, and second? Second. Randy, second. Any discussion?
If I may, LAN means
Please proceed to vote. Thank you. Item C, appointment, Item C, appointment, tenure track, physical ed / health teacher. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to back up a second. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that the Board of Education at its July 21, 2022 meeting approves the appointment of Paul Donahue to the position of land tech as per Sullivan County Civil Service Rules and Regulations, effective on or about August 1, 2022, for a probationary period of 26 weeks, pending fingerprint clearance. The salary for the 2022-2023 school year, prorated, will be $28.81 per hour. Step 3, current TESA collective bargaining agreement, 7.5 hours per day, 240 days per year. Next item on the agenda is the appointment of tenure track physical education / health teacher. Can I have a motion
Motion.
to accept the tenure track physical education / health teacher? Motion by Rose, second. Second by Brent. Any discussion? Please proceed to vote. It's unanimous. Thank you. Next item is item D, the BOCES bill, June. I'm going to back up. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools that at its July 21, 22 meeting, the Board of Education approves the appointment of Skylar Musa to a 4-year probationary term as a physical education / health teacher in the tenure area of physical education commencing September 1, 2022, provided that, except to the extent required by law, in order to grant tenure, you shall have received composite or overall annual professional performance review ratings pursuant to Education Law Section 3012-C or Section 3012-D of either effective or highly effective in at least 3 of the 4 preceding years. And if you receive an ineffective composite or overall rating in the final year of the probationary period, you shall not be eligible for tenure at that time. This appointment is at Step 6, $62,476 as per the current TVTA contract for the 2022-2023 school year. As per contract, additional salary for a master's degree and credit hours will be reviewed for approval. Skylar Musser currently holds New York State initial certification in the areas of health education, effective September 10, 2021, valid through January 31st, 2027, and physical education effective January 23rd, 2021, valid through January 31st, 2026. Thank you. Item D, the BOCES bill, June 2022. Can I have a motion to pay the bill, the BOCES bill, June 2022?
Motion.
Who's it, Rose?
Second.
Pat, second. Any discussion? Please proceed to vote. It's unanimous, thank you. Be it resolved, the board approves the BOCES bill dated June 2022. Item 4, public comment session for items that are not on tonight's agenda. Nothing? Can I have a motion to adjourn? Randy?
Second.
Have a second?
Second.
Danielle, second. Please proceed to vote. That's unanimous. Thank you and good night.